that stands for Broward, Palm Beach, Miami Real Estate Investors Association, formerly known as BRIA, and your only approved chapter of the National RIA in South Florida. So welcome. We're going to get into 20 ways to jumpstart an IRA this morning with Carl Fisher, founder of Camaplan. And of course, we have our CEO, Anish Jave, on here with us today. I'm going to give you guys a couple of upcoming events, some announcements. As you know, we are busy this week. So we are meeting in person in Boca Raton. It's free, RSVP required at Wyndham. It's going to be fantastic. Finding funds for real estate. This will be a collab event with BPM and DRIA. We will be honoring a very special award going to Jim Van Dyke tomorrow, a Lifetime Achievement Award. So it's going to be a very special time. And I hope to see you all there. And we have another webinar this week. It's going to be really cool, a little different. We're going to go into some tax horror stories with our chief tax strategist, Jose Ramirez, on Thursday. So I hope to see you guys at that free webinar as well. For anyone that wants to come meet us, we are having another opportunity in Pompano Beach this Saturday. It is also free, again, limited seating. So please RSVP on our website, bpmria.com. Head over to that upcoming events tab and register right now for Saturday. Come for this workshop that we're going to have. It's going to be really good. Learn how to wholesale and find deals for big profits. Again, in Pompano Beach, it'll be from 10 to 12, and we'll probably hang back for a little bit for some chat and questions. So hope to see you guys there also. And then next week, we'll be going really into tax planning strategies with Jose Ramirez, diving in. This was going to be a great webinar for absolutely everybody in here right now or watching this replay. So don't miss that free webinar next week. And oh my gosh, guys, we know we've been waiting for this moment. Our next main in-person meeting at the Signature Grand is coming up right around the corner. So I'm just so excited for us all to get together at our venue where we can just gather and have a bunch of space and a ton of great networking. So that's going to be Wednesday, August 3rd from 5:30 to 8:30 at the Signature Grand. Go ahead and save your seat right now because we do have early bird tickets available. And of course, all of our members get in free for our main in-person meeting. So go ahead, get your ticket now. So when you get to that networking, you can just be super smooth walking in through the door and get to it with our amazing vendors, such as Carl, for example, that's on here today. So don't miss it. August 3rd is going to be, one of our biggest meetings of the year. So hope to see you all there and register on the website. And I'll pop that link in the chat for you guys. As you know, you can get a text reminder the day of the event if you opt in for our text message service for events updates. So text BPM REIA to 954-800-6961 if you would like to get text updates for our events. This is just for text updates. I don't call this line. This isn't a phone line. This is just a text line to get updates for our events. All righty, a quick start bootcamp dates have been released. September 10th, September 11th, all day, 2-day training from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Zoom. It is not like a webinar like we're in right now. It's going to be like a meeting setting. So cameras on, microphones on, we're getting into it, very much participating throughout the entire boot camp. We want you to make the absolute most of this one-on-one time with us. I mean, it's going to be a very close-knit, a very, very awesome training for guest speakers, for business owners. You can check out all of these speakers on bpmquickstart.com. If you go to that website, you'll see all the people that are speaking, who they are, and learn about them before you sign up. And you will see that it is a money back guarantee. So 2 full days, we're getting into all these topics that you see on the screen right now. You can check out bpmquickstart.com if you want more information, but also thank you guys so much for responding to this poll that we popped up. I know a lot of you have attended this training and you thoroughly enjoyed it. And I appreciate you guys. And I know a lot of you have been putting in a bunch of Google reviews. So thank you guys so much for that. We definitely appreciate it. So anyone who responds to this poll, I'll be back with more information for you on the quick start, because I have a really good feeling that you're going to enjoy it thoroughly. All right, so memberships to BPM RIA. Memberships to BPM RIA, you are able to get into our quarterly meetings for free. You get discounts to all of our special seminars. Like for example, we are having special workshops online and in person these days. So we're always going to have special member pricing for those. You get your guests in for discount, as well as the amazing National RIA benefit package with huge discounts to Home Depot, Rent Perfect, Avis, Budget, Arcana Insurance, just a ton of incredible vendors. So if you have any questions on how membership can benefit you, anything like that, thank you guys for responding to the poll. I appreciate it. You can always send me an email or give me a call and we can get into it. But I promise you will go ahead and save everything that you spend in a membership, just utilizing your benefits in the National RIA benefit package. So go ahead and go to the website and buy your membership if you don't have one already. One-on-one coaching and mentoring. So if you are looking for someone to help you elevate your business, that's what we do. We pair you with a mentor. This is truly a one-on-one coaching and mentoring program. This is my direct line right here, but I also have the ability for you to schedule a discovery call right now. You can go straight to the website, book a discovery call. I can let you know everything that's included in our one-on-one coaching program. We give you tickets to our boot camp, you get a membership, you get a coach, you get a ton of things included. So it's not something that I can even get into right now, but if you want more information, if you're interested in it ever so slightly, go ahead and book that discovery call so I can get that information in your hands and you can go ahead and decide if it's a good fit for you or not. And I can absolutely help schedule a 1-hour consultation with a mentor directly. So if you would like to take advantage of that, go to the website right now, book a discovery call. And this is also my direct line that you can call me and we can talk about this. But always best to schedule a time that works for both of us. So go to the website and thank you guys for responding to that poll. Appreciate it. Always want to take a moment to thank National RIA, thank our sponsors, thank our vendors, thank Carl, thank Anish, thank everybody for being on here on this webinar today. And thank you guys. If you're going to watch this replay, please please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm going to give you guys the links to everything. And thank you so much, Carl. I just want to say one last thing. It's Carl's birthday tomorrow. So happy early birthday, Carl. Thank you so much for setting this.
Happy birthday.
Woo!
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure we're gonna see you tomorrow in Boca Raton. So, and we'll give you a little birthday surprise over there too. And yeah, I'm done here. I'm excited for Carl to come on.
Yep. And yeah, so before we get started too, also, I know I see a lot of familiar faces, and my name's Anish Dave, president of BPM RIA. And as Alexa was saying, we are the only approved chapter with National RIA in South Florida. What that really means for you, they do background checks, criminal checks, and they have compliance. And luckily I passed all three so far. So that's why we're still approved. I am always excited when I have Carl Fisher, actually when I see him or even speak. Without a doubt, one of the smartest people I've ever met. And I was lucky to meet, I want to say it's like 8 or 9 years ago on the National RIA cruise. Due to the pandemic, unfortunately, they did not have it last year, and they're not going to have it this year. I highly recommend the next one that they do. You want to come party with us, learn a lot. And, I said, self-directed IRAs or retirement. I'm too young to retire, I'm thinking. And before you knew it, it's starting to sneak up. You're like, crap, there goes another year. And I really didn't, I want to say I was a semi-smart guy, meaning I thought I understood how retirement works or self-directed IRA. And then I sat in on Carl's class or workshop for about an hour and a half. What Carl won't tell you, or he may tell you, is I cornered him around the boat, even though the boat has about 5,000 people. Carl, usually eats breakfast around 7:30 in the morning. Guess who's eating breakfast at 7:30 in the morning? Magically, and just sits at his table, of course, right? Wherever, he probably thought I was following him. And, I'm going to come clean, Carl. I was following. Yeah, I was following. Yeah, I was stalking you. Fine. Wherever he went. And, he's, his background also, what he'll tell you is he did work for NASA. He literally was a rocket scientist. So I was like, hey, Carl, what do you think? You're a rocket scientist? And he goes, actually, how did you know? I was like, oh, crap. So, without a doubt, he literally has changed, my life for the better. I'm really using a lot of strategies that he's taught over the years, or I've learned from him. And I've only barely touched the surface on it. So I'm still a student learning, and I just do what he says to do, and then it works out. And the last thing I'll leave you with is to give you an idea. Hopefully there's not any financial planners on this call, but I actually took control of my retirement away from my financial planner and started investing in real estate with my Roth IRA. And I've 10x'd, that's 10 times as much in my Roth IRA from when I started. So the first job, I always joke about, you want to make money. Second job is to keep it legally. When I say keep it legally, pay the least amount of taxes. And, I'm going to give the floor to Carl. I'm going to kind of hang out, listen in. And remember, rules of thumb, just go ahead and put, questions in the Q&A so we could get to them. If you do have like specific questions and all this other stuff, we may or may not get to it, but we'll give you Carl Fisher's, someone on his team that could help answer some of those questions too. So, all right, Carl, the show is yours.
Hey, thanks a lot, Anish. There's a couple things I want to add. I'm going to share my screen. Is this a good time to start?
You got it.
So one thing is I want to thank you for being here and all the nice things you said about me. And everybody says retirement is so far away, but as you mentioned, it comes up quicker. But the other thing is you want it to come up quicker, right? You want to retire if you can at 40, versus the government saying you can retire at 65 or 70 and get your Social Security. You want to have that financial freedom when you're still healthy and things are really good and you can travel around or do whatever you want to do with your retirement. So I kind of call it making money, in several different areas with some asset protection and saving, tax-free. And you mentioned your Roth, which, as you know, I'm a big proponent of being tax-free income for the rest of your life, and then 10 years after you're dead to your heirs. So let's get started. Last time we talked, we had a lot of questions. Well, what can you do with, so little money? How can you buy when two condos are, $250,000, thereabouts? Besides going out to Indiana and getting a little bit cheaper. So we're going to talk a little bit about that on this seminar. And if people have questions, they can put it right in there. So I'm trying to, there we go. First thing I want to do is kind of go through this disclosure. We don't give investment advice. We don't have any endorsements. We want everybody to pick the items that they know and understand and are good at working it. Anish, you learned real estate. My mom and dad were in real estate and their mom and dads were in real estate. So we kind of hit it off, even though you were stalking me around the boat, because we understood the advantages of having real estate in our lives. So all the information I'm going to give you today are for educational purposes only. we want you to get your accountant, your attorneys, financial advisors, spouses, whatever, whoever you think is best to help you out with your investments. And bring them to any of our meetings or set up a call with the Gamma Plan people, and we'll answer all their questions. We've been doing it for, almost 20 years. There's not many questions we don't get that we can't answer. We're not CPAs, realtors, or attorneys. If tax and legal accounting is necessary, get expert assistance, right? The services of competent professionals should be sought. And now I want to bring up again, being a member of any of the national RIA groups, especially BPM, you can show up to their meetings, you pay your $295 fee, but you've almost got an instant team there. You can check with the accountants, the attorneys, the mailing lists, the lenders, and I don't know how many vendors he has, but I mean, he fills a room with probably 30 vendors that I've seen there. Maybe you don't use them all, but it's definitely a good place to start, which is a benefit of your membership above what you get from the other vendors that National gives you. So I do think it's a great place, and I think for that amount and the amount that you learn from the speakers and the programs that they have, I mean, this week is unbelievable with 5, 6, 7 things going on in the next 10 days. So congrats to Anish and Alexa for setting all that up. Quickly, what is a self-directed IRA? This is the definition here. I'm going to make it real simple, and it's one that lets you invest in anything you want. If you go on to Wikipedia and type in self-directed IRA, you can get a longer, about a page and a half, 2 pages of what a self-directed IRA is. 20 years ago, hardly anybody knew about it. It was a tool for pretty much the wealthy. But since then, it's been opened up to everyone, and they've been using it like Anish does to increase his retirement funds, his educational funds, and his health savings account. So not only can you use it for your retirement, you get to use it for other, what I call life necessary payments. So what's the difference is the rules are all the same, whether it's self-directed or sitting at your Schwab or Janney Montgomery, et cetera, accounts, right? The statements look a little bit different because if you look at your statements from any of the main brokerage houses, they talk about stocks, CDs, mutual funds. Most of our clients do real estate, they lend money, they buy tax liens, they get into private businesses. So that's the main difference in what you see. You can do transfers and rollovers or contributions and distributions to fund your account. You don't have to do them all. You can do a little bit. You can leave half in your brokerage account and half in your real estate or self-directed account. And I always tell people, take a look at that, do that 1 year, and then at the end of the year, see whose account did better, and then make your decision going forward. You can roll the other money to the self-directed, or you can say, hey, I'm better in stocks, and move the money from the self-directed back. So try it out, see how good you are. I asked Anish at one of our meetings, who watches your money better than you? And he says, well, the only person that does that is my wife. So we had a little bit of a laugh there, but I say that people that watch their own money and make their own decisions do better. Now, I'm not saying don't listen to a financial advisor, but take their advice under advisement, think about it, but then make your decisions. You should do that in 2 things that I've found in my life, and that's finances and with doctors. Get a couple of second opinions. And the other thing that I think is really good is you can make these transfers back and forth between these accounts with no taxes or penalties. So think about that. And the first thing that I would say for you to do is open up an account before you start asking people, what else am I going to do with it? Get it open first. I think that's a great first step. And then you'll meet people that have these accounts and are doing it, right? Most of the people that invest with us do real estate, precious metals, notes, mortgages, and private placements. Private placements, a lot of time, are funds or LLCs that people band together in because they want to put more money out there because they want to meet some minimum requirements to get into some investments. This joke somebody gave me, right? I own some preferred stock, but based on its performance, I must be the only one who prefers it. So if you want more diversity, think about adding these other types of investments or other investments that you're good at into your self-directed one. In real estate, I do a lot of these investments. I was in some foreign property investments, but those are too hard to manage, and they're a little bit nerve-wracking with government instability and things like that. So I don't do a lot of foreign property investments unless I do a lot of due diligence on them. These are different mortgages that are out there. And if you learn how to do these things, you know, for yourself with some of the mentors, you can quickly double that knowledge by putting it into your self-directed IRA, 401k, educational account, or health account. So to me, it's like paying once for the education, but being able to use it in multiple places. These are some of the private placements we talked about. And we'll give you a copy of this slide, and I'll also have a QR code at the end where you can download some of the other ways to 20 ways to get an investment. So after I talked about all those investments that you can have, the IRS does tell you that you can't have a few investments, okay? And basically those investments are collectibles and life insurance. What's a collectible? Works of art, antiques, stamps or coins. Alcoholic beverages are also not allowed. But this is the short list of what you cannot put in a self-directed IRA at this point in time. Right. The other one that we had questions from that I didn't get a chance to answer out on the last session we did is disqualified persons. Who can't your IRA deal with? Right. Your IRA can't deal with yourself. Right. You can't deal with your parents or grandparents, your children or grandchildren, lineal ascendants or descendants, right, which are all in the yellowed out process on this chart. There's corporations and partnerships, you know, there's fiduciaries, et cetera, that are also included as disqualified persons. But what the IRS is trying to do is limit who you know, who's going to do this. Your parents could sell your IRA, their house, for $10, you know, and it'd be worth $1 million, and they would be out the taxes on the income associated with that. So basically, certain people are disqualified from doing business with your IRAs or 401ks. But I don't want to focus on that. Let's focus on what makes people money. And there's a quick rule if you want to know if their rules or regulations are against it, right? No self-dealing and no personal use. You can't buy a second house down the Jersey Shore or in the Keys or out, you know, in California or even Mexico and then expect to use it. It's got to be an investment for your IRA. And we can talk about that later if anybody's thinking about those types of things. So let me just end at that point and go on to the types of accounts I want people to look at. And the main question that comes from this screen is, which accounts should I have? Okay, I'm a big proponent of tax-free versus tax deferred. They're both good, and I say have as many as you can, and then determine, how you want to adjust those as life goes on. But I like having the tax-free. I like having 401ks. I like having Roth IRAs. I like having the Roth IRA or the Roth component of my 401k. I like getting plans for my grandchildren. I like having my kids do it. So have as many of these accounts as you can. You're not limited to one. But the other thing that you can do is if you have multiple accounts, and you may, people ask, well, how am I going to put $50,000 down on a $150,000 property? And one of them is, hey, you can get 7 or 8 of these accounts that have, $6,000 together, and 6 or 7,000 in contributions, and put them together in an LLC or a trust, and that trust can buy into a home. So that's just one of the things that we can do here. And you can put, defined benefit plans, defined contribution plans, which can have, defined benefit can get up to like $275,000 fairly easily, and defined contribution plans like a 401k, in a lot of cases can get $65,000 a year. So if you get one of those, it's pretty simple to get money in there. So you need to look at contributions and how much can be put into these contributions. But it might be worthwhile to take a 401k and pair it with an IRA or a health savings account or an educational savings account for your kids. So think about using them in conjunction with that. And I think that's another way that you can get into this world of tax-free income for life, right? Let me just pause here a minute and tell you what CamaPlan does, right? The IRS requires you to use somebody to open up an IRA, whether it's Schwab or Fidelity or Vanguard, or a bank, you have to use a third party to open up an IRA. And whether it's self-directed or not, a lot of those companies or brokerage houses won't do self-directed unless you've got hundreds of millions with them. However, CamaPlan acts as a third party so that you can open a self-directed IRA. It doesn't mean that you can't still have your brokerage account IRA. You can have both of them. We're a neutral third party, so we don't sell any products and we don't give any investment advice. And if you think about it, there's no way we're going to have a sales pitch for a property, at the Delaware Beach or in Galveston, Texas, or in Santa Monica, California. There's just too much information out there for us to have that. So we're not trying to take business away from the RIAs, the realtors, financial advisors, any of that. We just want to hold your assets so that you can have a diverse portfolio and invest in things that you know and understand, and hopefully give you a better return and more control of your financial plan. So we keep all the records that, as much as contributions, distributions, and we do the reporting to the IRS. So you get your 5498 showing your contributions and your yearly valuation, as well as any distributions on a 1099, just like Vanguard and the banks and brokerage houses do. So think of us as part of your advisory team of professionals. We don't mind having calls with your financial advisors, accountants, or attorneys. It's totally up to you guys to do this, right? So how do you do this? Really quickly, you walk around this wheel counterclockwise, right? You'll open up an account. It's just like opening up a bank account. You'll fund your account. by making a contribution transferred from an existing IRA or 401k or employer plan. And then you're going to choose your investment, whether it's real estate, whether it's lending on real estate, whether it's precious metals, or putting money into a fund or an LLC. And once you do that, you'll sign that paperwork, and we'll send the investment funds to the wire them in most cases to the proper parties. And then you'll sit back and watch your deposits come in, whether it's rental income or interest and principal income from a note, or earnings from a LLC, a K1. So think about it as just another entity that's out there for investment purposes with the key tax benefits associated with it. And those key tax benefits, even if you're not paying much now, in the future, if you're successful, or when you're successful, you'll be glad you have these accounts to do more and more deals in them. So Anish asked me to come up with one thing, that I thought everybody should know, and it's this: invest in what you know and understand and can control, versus using hope as a strategy. And I get this because there's so many people that say, hey, I just put my money in my 401k or my IRA and I let my advisor do it. And that's what I call hope as a strategy. You have to get engaged in your financial freedom if you really hope to make a success, right? You can't just hope it there, or I don't think you have as good a chance if you're hoping and leaving it up to others. So that's my words of wisdom from today, right? So we have a handout, 20 ways to jumpstart your IRA, and I'm only going to talk about 3 or 4 of them here today, right? And the first one is to co-invest with it. And I'll touch on these subjects, but really what I want you to do is get with the mentors at BPM RIA, and they'll go through the steps for how you'll co-invest on a deal. As an example, we had a client that went into an investment. He put $2,000 down on the investment and signed the contract, and it was for a beaten down house that was, being sold for 100,000, would need about 50,000 to in rehab, and would be worth about 250,000 at the end of the they'd net 100,000 on the deal. So the IRA bought the contract for $5,000, and they sold half of it for $150,000. Okay, and people said, well, why would anybody pay $150,000 for this half of this contract, right? And you think that it's steep because it was all of the money, or 90% of the money, 95% of the money going in there. But they're going to make on that 150,000 in less than a year, they're going to make $50,000. So they're going to make 33% on their money. But the IRA that put the $5,000 into it and still owns half of it is going to make $50,000 on their $5,000 investment. So that's one of my favorite examples, right? You buy the contract, you put it in the name of the IRA, and then you assign half of it over to an investor that comes in with all the money. And your RIA mentors can help you with that. The other thing you can do is borrow money, right? One of my favorite ways to borrow money is to take a subject to property, right? One that already has a mortgage on it. You can go in there and buy it a lot of times just for the mortgage or for a few $1,000s or less. You can buy that in your Roth IRA. It has a mortgage on it, which is obviously non-recourse to your IRA because it's in the other people's name. Now you do have to convince them that you're going to make money on it and you're going to make the payments for them. And a lot of times they're really happy to do that. Now, those days, we saw a lot of that back in, between 2009 and 2012. Today, I don't know that would work, but based on what I'm seeing in the economy and the talk of the recession, it may be something that is of value to you, within the next year or two. So that's another way you can put a little bit of money down and borrow it. The other one is just put a few $1,000s down and borrow the majority of the money from a bank or an IRA or from a business. Now, the property will be the collateral. You can't sign on it. It has to be a non-recourse loan, but that's another way to take a few $1,000s and turn it into, a house that you can improve and watch it grow in value over the years. One of the other ways I've seen people take a little bit of money is they'll go in with a little bit of money, maybe just enough to do a rehab and take out, put a second loan on the property because the person has bought it, but they can't get money from a bank to rehab it. So now you can lend money from your IRA. The other thing that I really like about that is a lot of times by lending money, you get insight into the rehabber's team or how they're doing their investments, from womb to tomb, that you understand their exit strategy. And at this point, you basically have a mentorship that you're getting paid for. But again, that's a little bit more of a risky investment because depending on how much your knowledge you have in the industry. So I'd recommend you, learning about it and learning about rehabbing or different ways to lend money on a deal and figure that out. So at this point, that's what I would like people to understand about ways to jumpstart your IRA. You take a little bit. The first example, you made $50,000 on 5 on borrowing, taking a subject to property and paying it off with the rental income. You basically put a little bit in and are building up equity year after year. And then the other one is lending money. And there's different ways to do all these situations. Talk to the mentors at RIA and ask them how they do it in their IRAs. Let me talk a little bit about the different types of accounts where we showed you earlier, some were tax-free and some were tax deductible. Traditional IRAs are tax deductible, and this is what most people have because you get a break on the money that you put into a traditional IRA. But when the earnings come out, when the money comes out, you have to pay tax on your rate at that point in time. Is that rate going to be higher or lower than when you're putting money into your traditional? That's the type of things you need to look at. A Roth is my favorite. It's tax-free. And both of these are personal accounts. Now you can take that traditional anytime in your lifetime and convert it to a Roth and pay the taxes then. And then everything that grows after that conversion will be tax-free. Now, the SEP and Simple are IRAs, but they're for businesses and business owners. And the main difference between the personal and the business loans are you can have higher contributions in the business IRAs. So, in my opinion, I think you should have a business and a personal to put contributions into and build up your accounts as you go forward. And maybe you have all 4 of these, or at least 3 of them, one business, one Roth, and one traditional. There's been a lot of changes that have occurred in the IRA industry over the past 5 years, from Trump to the Biden administration. And I'm going to go over some of these now because they may change your long-term planning. Contributions are allowed in 2022, no matter what age you are, as long as you have earned income. This is kind of funny because at the same time, the government's requiring you to take a mandatory distribution, which is at age 72. You can also put a $7,000 contribution in, which would lower your taxes on the amount that you're taking out. So I'm not sure exactly what this does, but it does allow you to continuously contribute to your IRAs, and it should be considered for estate planning going forward, and for your heirs, especially your kids or grandkids.
Hey, Carl.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question on the required minimum, withdrawal? So we have some members in our group, right, that are actually in the 72 range, and they are, I'm going to say it nicely, pissed because they're forced to take out money that they don't need. So now they're getting hit with, maybe they have to take out 100,000 or whatever that amount is, and now it pushes them up on their tax rates.
Absolutely.
Have you been seeing that with a lot, because I know what the basis is, that when you get older, theoretically your income's going to be less, and that's not always true.
Well, it's not if you plan it right. I mean, right. Who's planning to have less money when they get older? Yeah. Right? I mean, nothing's going down in price, right? Cars, gas, boats, right? Rent, houses, food. So nothing's really going down. I think that's a lousy plan if that's what you're thinking about. But
well, I mean, you always hear that. That's why I was laughing, because that's the common, even some of the accountants that are not maybe real estate or I don't want to say just real estate, or they'll just say, hey, try to get that deduction now, that 6,000 or 7,000 now. Yep. You're going to save X amount today versus down the future.
Yep, you're 100% right. I think that's, they must be hammered into every accountant's head because they always say take the deductions now. But in my opinion, I believe that you will have to be even in a higher tax bracket in 2025 when the Trump tax cuts get closed. Now, a way around having to take RMDs is having Roth IRAs. They don't make you take money out of a Roth IRA, although you can continually contribute to it. So that's one of the ways that's there. And if you don't like that, when they're telling you to take out your money and it raises your taxes and you don't need it, you can put 7,000 back in, which helps a little bit on somebody that has 100,000, but you have to pay the tax anyway. So take out 200,000 because they're already jacked you up into another tax level, or however much you want, and convert that, at 72, and then some more at 73 and 74, and then your RMD will go down. right? Depending on how much, because your RMD is based on how much is in your account and what your age is. So every year you get older, you have to take more out. But
Yeah.
every year that you can lower that amount, you can take, it'll be less. But you'll have to take it all out, I think, at 115 or 117 now. And
Yeah, and to give you guys a idea, like I did that with my dad's account. So he had a traditional IRA where, 401k, and we didn't do it all at once. We, spoke to the accountant and we took it, over 4 years, and we're able to convert everything into a Roth eventually. So which it worked out. And really the point is you want to plan it is what I'm telling you.
yeah,
and don't assume you're going to make less money down the road.
yeah. No, but you talked about, you and I talked about that, right? And you
Yeah.
listened to it, you saw it on paper, and you took action in this, and that's why you're where you are today.
Yeah,
it's not hard when you're working the numbers out. And in reality, if your dad doesn't spend that, guess who it's going to?
Yeah, my sister. I think he still
Right.
likes her more than me, so I think I might get a little bit, but no.
Yeah, but you can't convert that to a Roth after he dies, right? Even if you inherit it, you can't convert an inherited IRA. So in my opinion, you and your sister were very smart in helping her do that, helping him do that, so congratulations and thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just had to butt in on some of that because, I just feel like there's a lot of bad information. And the cool thing is obviously you owning Camel Plan and me being part of the RIA, I get a bird's eye view of people way smarter than I am and what's happening to them.
Sure. And your stalking skills. But yeah, we're always, happy to share what other people are doing, because a lot of them have a lot of smart attorneys and accountants, and we see thousands and thousands of accounts. Right. So another one of these changes which affected my estate planning is the IRAs. I used to be able to pass them down to 2 generations, so I could make that IRA last almost a century. But at the end of the Trump tax cuts, one of the changes were these IRAs are only going to be allowed to be used by the inherited beneficiaries for 10 years. At the end of 10 years, you're going to have to take all the money out and pay the taxes on it, either over those 10 years or at the end of the 10 years. The other one was there's more expenses allowed for tax-free withdrawals in the 529s. You can't really self-direct the 529s, but a lot of people say they're in competition with the educational savings accounts. Again, I said have both of them for your kids' education. But they have made the 529 more desirable at this point in time because they have higher contribution limits. And they also added birth and adoptions are exempt, so you can take $5,000 out of a husband and wife's IRAs if you give birth to a child or do an adoption for a child. Right. This one here is right. It's a little bit of a joke, right? I won't roll over again. I've already done that once this year. So they're only allowing people to roll over once in their IRA. So now if you're doing a transfer to a Roth or you're doing transfers from one IRA to another, you can do those as many times as you want. But if you do what a rollover is, meaning you take the money out of an IRA, they send a check to you, and then you go put it into a self-directed IRA, you're only allowed to do that once. If you tell Schwab or Vanguard or Fidelity to send the money to Camel Plan, that's called a transfer. and you're allowed to do as many of those as you want. So just pay close attention. If you're not sure, call us up and ask them, talk to your accountant, check with the IRS, so that you're not limited to what you're doing at the time, or if there's a better way to do it. So Roth conversions, right? Since we've been talking about it, and I really think that it's a cool way to make tax-free money now and for the rest of your life. And even though you may not be using that money when you're making it, we can show you ways that you can take it out early without paying penalties. But it is increasing your net worth, and it's also adding to your asset protection, because most of these IRAs and 401ks are protected by state and federal laws. So what's the best time for Roth IRA conversion? When your taxes are at the lowest. Do you have a bad year? I'll tell you, in 2009, a lot of realtors converted their traditional IRAs to Roth IRAs because they weren't making any money. What are the benefits of doing Roth IRA conversion? Well, the one is, we talked about, you don't have to do the 72 RMDs, so those go away. The second thing is, all the earnings for the rest of your life, and 10 years after you die, will be tax-free. So you don't care where the tax rate goes. You pay the taxes at today's tax rate, and if the tax rates go up, you're looking really smart. If they go down, you're not looking as smart, but at least you've taken it out of that realm when you will be, and hopefully we'll be making more money in the future. So think about those, and I'll go over those and a few more things. Are there tax advantages of converting a traditional IRA to a Roth? You talked about it, Anish, with your father, and he may not have popped himself up into a higher tax bracket, and you're going to pay the tax somewhere along the lines. So I say, take it now and don't worry about, what happens in the future. You've taken that variable out of the equation, right? Is there a downside to converting to a Roth IRA? Well, let's take an example. The S&P is down 30%, I believe, from its high today. So a lot of people took their stocks and converted them to a Roth, right? And they said, well, I saved because I would have been, let's just say their portfolio was worth 100,000. Now it's only worth 70,000. They're young and they think that the stock market's going to go back up. So they pay in the tax on 70,000, but they're pretty sure they're going to get back to 100 and even past that. So I think that that's a positive. But what happens if you convert to that Roth and it goes down another 20%? You can't undo that now, so that would be a downside. But again, if you're young, you've at least converted and saved 30, where you could have waited and converted and saved 50. So that's one of the things that's there. In 2008 and 9, when properties went down, there was some in Florida that went down, 70%. And I did a conversion at that point when the value of the property went down from 350 to 100,000. So that's what I call turning lemons into lemonade. What's the 5-year rule when doing a Roth conversion? When you do that conversion, you should wait 5 years before you take out earnings on that amount of money. If you're over 59 and a half, you don't have to, but every Roth conversion starts a new 5-year clock. So just put that into your thought process when you're making these decisions for it, right? should I make a Roth conversion? Right? What's your current and future tax bracket? Where are you going to be? We talked about that in this. Are you going to be making less money or more money in the future? And it depends on the types of money. Is it real estate? Is it, earned income, passive income, traditional IRA, tax deferred income, etc. So think about where that income's coming from. If you're still going to have a job, right, and you're going to have W-2 income or dividends, that's another one to do that, right? So where are you putting that money, and what types of and amounts are going to be in different investment accounts? That's looking at your portfolio, right? Time left until withdrawals are needed, right? If it is a Roth and you're already 72, maybe you want to do more. If you're 60 to 72 is where I tell people to look at it. And people keep telling me, why didn't you tell me this sooner so I could do a little bit more as time went on? And a lot of times they don't realize it till they get that first RMD. And I had a couple of people say, well, you didn't make it clear to me. I didn't know that's what you were saying. So think about doing Roth IRAs whenever you have a lean year in income, because your tax burden is probably going to be less. Or if you're going to pay higher taxes, you're going to know about it in the tax reforms from the government. So it might be a good time to, when you see a law get passed, hopefully they make it forward active and not retroactive. That's a good time to do it, right? So, and then understand your level with your investment risk and make those decisions. Right. This came from one of our last talks, one of the questions that came out of Nish, and this is for people that are making too much money to have a Roth IRA. Because if you make over, I think it's 125,000 as a single person or 196,000 as a married person, the government considers you rich and you cannot have a Roth IRA. Now you can have a Roth 401k, but you can't have a Roth IRA. So what a lot of accountants did years ago in 2010, they made this law and they stopped the limitations on income for rollovers. So if you make over $200,000 and you're married, you can put money into a traditional IRA. It's not deductible, however, because of your income, because the government feels you're wealthy. But since it isn't deductible, you don't pay any tax on it when you convert it from the traditional IRA to the Roth IRA. So think about that, right? You can do it in a couple of days or a couple of years at that point, right? So now that I'm saying you don't pay any tax on that conversion, if you do have other traditional IRA money that was in there and you did get a deduction for it, you do have to pay attention to the pro rata rule that the IRS has out there. As an example, if 50% of your traditional IRA was not deductible and 50% was deductible, and you made a rollover of or a transfer of or a conversion of $10,000, you would pay $5,000. You pay tax on only $5,000 because you were converting part of the non-deductible with the deductible. So I hope that's clear. If you have any questions on that, call our office. We'll help you figure that out. This all gets captured on IRS Form 8606, and that's what you use if the IRS ever asks you, or your heirs use if the IRS ever asks you when were these conversions made. And then you just rinse and repeat and do the next thing for the next year until your conversions are to where you want them. So I hope that makes sense. I don't know if we've wanted to talk about the checkbook IRA. A lot of people like it. It was shunned at the end of last year in the fall and winter looking at it. We don't recommend them, but you can actually do what's called a checkbook LLC IRA, which will allow the trustee to have the checkbook and buy investments. And we at Gamma Plan track the ownership of the interest in the LLC, but not any of the investments. So that is something that's out there. We would ask you to talk to your attorney on setting these up because they're a little bit different than just setting up any LLC. And we can give you the court cases associated with how this was litigated by the IRS, and the IRS lost. So, but everybody expects the IRS to win if it happens again. So just be careful that we don't recommend it, but since you asked, I felt obligated to answer it to people. So basically, you or the trustee gets control of your IRA, and you can purchase things much quicker in a lot of cases. We do see people do it for cryptocurrency. We do see them do it for tax liens, and we do see them for tax deeds where the money has to be there quickly. And some people do it for precious metals that they're going to store overseas. That's the four examples that we really do. Health savings accounts, they're my favorite because they're tax deductible going in and they're tax-free coming out when they're paid for medical expenses. So this is the best savings account, you know, that I've seen the government do ever. Deductible going in and tax-free coming out. So that it's got the capabilities of both the traditional and the Roth IRA. And I just want anybody who's paying for their own health insurance to know about these. And by the way, these health savings accounts can invest in everything we talked about. And you can use them to pay for your medical expenses or your family's medical expenses for the rest of their life. So take a look at these, talk to your financial advisor, check our website out, but everybody should have one of these accounts, especially if you're paying your own health insurance. And a lot of corporations and companies will allow you to have these accounts as well. Here's another one, again, for the Roth accounts, comparing it to a savings accounts. Whenever you make contributions to your Roth IRA, you can take those contributions out at any time. So if you're having a savings account for emergency purposes, I say convert it to the Roth IRA, because the one benefit you do get from that is its asset protection. If you go into court, the accountants and the litigants are going to ask how much is in your checking and savings accounts. They won't ask about your IRAs, because in most cases they can't get to it. Right, and anything that it earns in your Roth IRA, you won't pay taxes on it. Anything that you earn on your savings account, granted, you're not going to make much in today's interest rates, but you will have to pay tax on it. You do have limit to the contributions in your Roth IRA, but you don't have any limits to the amount deposited in your savings accounts. So I basically got rid of all my savings accounts and put the money into Roth IRAs 15 years ago, because I just didn't see any reason to leave them there and open for litigation. You have a question in this? You look like you
Yeah,
have.
I got a few. It's just because on time, I want to hit some of these questions
Sure.
too, and then we'll kind of get back to it. So Kevin's asking, Carl, I have several accounts at Gamma Plan. What's the best entity to combine several accounts to do an investment, a trust, LLC? I'd like to combine my HSA and Roth to do a larger deal. So I think you can.
Yeah, my answer to that is I can't really give you that advice because I'm not an attorney, and it depends on what you're doing and what the risk is associated with those. But I've seen people use trusts, and I've seen them use LLCs, and I would recommend them talk to their attorneys and asset protection people, and then there's their accounts, their accountants.
Yep. And I think Antonio's got the same kind of question. So then all the retirement Roth accounts together and they own the trust. So is that how it would work if you were going to kind of set that up? The trust would own the accounts, I imagine.
Well, what happens is if you set up a trust, I mean, let's just say it's a land trust and you're buying a property, each one of the accounts, right? I mean, it could be Gamma Plan for, Gamma Plan traditional IRA for benefit of Joe, Gamma Plan Roth IRA for benefit of Joe, Gamma Plan HSA for benefit of Joe, with 10%, 40%, and 50%, whatever makes up 100% of those things. So they're going to be beneficiaries of that trust. But that trust with the trustee are the ones that are going to be signing on the document, and that trust will be the ABC Land Trust, or the 123 Main Street Land Trust that owns that property. The beneficiaries will not be known. They'll be hidden in that documentation, and the ownership will be considered the trust. But other people want to have the LLC, and those IRAs could own the LLC, or shares in that LLC, and then the LLC would hold it, and the LLC would give you, more protection, for your IRAs if you listen to some attorneys. You understand where I am? The trust doesn't give you the veil of protection that an LLC does,
Yep. And then he's also asking, will the heirs have to pay taxes on their inherited Roth IRA?
No. Once it's a Roth IRA, it's free, tax-free.
Yep. And Ursula is asking, are you still coming across non-recourse lenders in this climate? I could even tell you, actually, one of our lenders at BPM RIA, Equity Max, Brad Emmer, he lends on IRAs. And I think Herb Lander more does also. So I know that's two within our group, and there's a few other ones out there, but I could tell you about those two.
Yeah, those are right in your group, and you have National Peace ones, North American Savings Bank, and then I forget another one up in North Dakota that does national lending. Now, I'm not saying that based on the property values and things that the last I checked, that you had to have 70%. They only go to 70% LTV, so you had to put 30% down, and that's how they generally minimize risk, is with how much LTV they're going to do.
Exactly. And for you guys that don't know what a non-recourse loan is, it's not personally guaranteed. So that's why a lot of lenders are not thrilled with non-recourse loans, or their loan to value changes, as Carl's talking about, from somewhere around 70% or even less sometimes.
Yeah, but if you're buying something with 30% down, the first 30%'s on the borrower.
Yep.
If you put 40% down, you've definitely minimized your risk.
Right. What about, and I know I'm just going to kind of rapid fire some questions. We're just going to kind of run through it. So let's say you're new to real estate, or you don't have that much money, right? And we're talking about the minimum requirements, if you're under 50, is $6,000. And the question I always get is, well, I don't have $6,000. Can you afford it? So how much can they open an account with you? It's number one, I guess. And can they make monthly payments toward, or does it have to be a lump sum? Like, I kind of know the answer, but I'm just gonna let you answer it. Is that, hey, I want to get started. I don't have a full $6,000 yet. How much money do I need to open up an account at Camel Plan? And can I do monthly withdrawal or withdrawals into the account or something of that nature?
Yeah, basically you can, we tell people to, 4,000 in their account.
Mhm.
And if you have $4,000 or more, we don't charge you a fee there. But much less than $1,000, you can't do much. But if you are gonna put $1,000 down, as in that first example, get a contract, sign it, and then sell it, to somebody, or sell half of it to somebody. That's an easy way to do that. If you scan this QR code, you may end up getting I hope I did it right. My technological skills are not as good as Alexa's, but let us know if you don't get the download of the 20 ways to invest with a little bit, then give us a call. But the answer is, generally, if you're sitting in cash, we don't charge you a fee. We don't do it if it's over $4,000. But yeah, you can put in $1,000 or $3,000 and just put it in monthly or weekly, or save it in a savings account, and then at the end of the year put it in. So we leave it up to our clients.
Yeah, and since you've been doing it for so long, do you want to kind of talk about the power of like even compounding interest, or like starting early, or like it's versus and I'm going to ask you a two-part question. That's the compounding interest, and then the second part of that question is, what is the youngest age that out of all your clients that has an IRA? How old would you know?
I mean, I know that we have one that was 6 months old.
Yeah. So
Right.
the child, just so you guys know, 6 months old, not the account 6 months old. The person, whether it's a boy or girl, is 6 months old.
Right. And they basically, their parents use them in their presentation materials, and they paid them a modeling fee. They were family oriented, so they took a picture of their family, paid their kids, and paid them modeling fees that were commensurate with what models would get in the area that they lived, right? And they also let them do political pictures with a politician, babies getting kissed and things like that. So they had earned income, and then they, like you were talking about that trust, then the family would put, a couple of those investments in those trusts or LLCs as well.
Yeah, I remember on the cruise, I forgot who the investor. I know mom and dad are investors, and in one of the IRA classes, there was a 12-year-old young man, and he owned 2 pieces of land in his IRA. Did I feel dumb when he asked me and said, "Hey, Nish, what do you own in your IRA?" I was like, "What do you mean?" So like it's pretty cool that it's a good way to involve your kids, your grandkids, and really teach them about money and investing. So, if you're, and there's advanced strategies that you could do. You could pay your kids for shredding or different things if you're a real estate investor. So or modeling like what Carl's talking about. So it's earned income. So it's pretty cool that, and I've seen what he's talking about also is that, you could buy a property, with, say it's $500, with dad, and $500 with the child in their IRA, and now you flip it or wholesale it out, and that's how you start building your IRA.
And your children's ESA, right? I mean, I say start building your kids' ESA, because you're going to use that money sooner, right? You can use that money for kindergarten, for daycare, for elementary, high school, and college. So start on that, or do them both, as you're going down that road. but you really want them to, you really, education, health, and, everyday life or retirement's kind of what you're saving for.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a big proponent, like some of my closest friends, like I have all their kids getting, these accounts just because they can start learning about money and the power of, compounding interest, right? So you're talking about this 6-month-old, child, right? What's going to happen? Imagine they don't touch it and you keep investing and, he or she is 30 years old or 40 and literally could have millions.
Yeah, I mean, that's going back to your question about the compound interest. I mean, look it up on Wikipedia and you'll see it. I think Albert Einstein, had a good quote about that. But if you start that, right, if you start $10,000 at, a year old, at 41 years old, at 15%, I used to have a chart in here that did that. But yeah, you're going to have millions of dollars. And people are always asking me, well, where are you going to get a 15% return? I said, I don't invest in the stock market, but don't believe me. Go to BPM RIA and see what those people are getting. And I'll bet you have a lot of people here with real estate that don't even know how much they make every year. My accountant sat down with me 25 years ago and said, here's your return on your real estate. You need to do this every year so you understand it. And when you hold that property for 30 or 40 years, right, you can see it go from 100,000 to 1 million pretty much, without doing much.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the long game. I'm surprised no one's really asked me about this yet, but I'll kind of ask you. What about the world of short-term rentals? Like, is there a way with IRA? Can your IRA own a short-term rental if you don't use it, or short-term rentals in general? I'll start with
well,
that.
the answer to that is yes. Your IRA can own a short-term rental, and there's two ways that people are using it. One is they're renting it out, and now a lot of cities are making them get business licenses, and they're calling it a business. Where if it's a business, there might be UBIT involved in it. So you have to look at that. But other people will buy a house and then rent it to an operator, and they'll just get their share of the rent. Kate Crowley in Milwaukee does that, right? Her IRA rents properties, or she rents properties and then makes the arbitrage on the Airbnb or the short-term rentals. Al Williamson has a great course on that too. You should probably.
I'll speak about that. Yeah.
Okay.
But especially down here in South Florida, I know everyone loves to get in that game. So imagine, the power of using so there is a way, is what I kind of want to get to, but you want to make sure you structure it correctly, and not everyone knows about that. So I was surprised because I know we've had a conversation and you said, actually, there is a way to do that. And I said, really? I didn't think that you could. So that was one of the things that I was very surprised to hear about that too.
Yeah.
And then we got a couple more minutes left. Is there any, what would you say, what about the other, the question I always get is about the Roth, is that going to go away anytime soon? What do you, and I know I'm kind of just throwing a question out there, because you always hear every year, hey, they're going to get rid of, a Roth, they might get rid of, a 1031, they might get rid of these things.
Well, here's the way the government does this stuff, right? If you have a Roth, the worst case is they said, okay, everybody has to take their money out of their Roth. They're not going to tax you, and your Roth goes away. The other one is they call it a short-term problem. So if you have one as of July of 2022, you're going to be able to keep it until you die, and 10 years after you die, because that's what the rule is now. And maybe they'll move it until you die. But generally, they don't shut it off, because to the government, who's going to be around forever, or for a long time, it's a short-term problem, right? For a lot of people, 70 it's shorter than people that are 30. So that's the other reason I say get them and open them up, because they didn't let them have them, and they didn't let the wealthy have them years ago, and they had to do that backdoor Roth that we explained.
Yeah, and one of the other things that, and it's really important, what Carl's saying about opening, can we actually, because we didn't actually touch on that, because I know this happens all the time for you, is like, hey, the investor finds a deal today, and now they want to open up a Roth, and they got to close in 3 or 4 weeks, or they have it somewhere else. Can you kind of talk about what that really looks like in real time, of how long and what you've seen?
Well, the first thing right, and that's why I say get your account open, ask us all the questions you have, get your accountant to know that it's there, so you're not worried about your money with Camaplan. Now your account is open. You find a house, you do a mentorship with BPM RIA, you find a property. Now you want to put a deposit down, $1,000 or $5,000, but you go to your account, it's open, but you don't have any money in it. Now you have to go to, especially if you've done your contributions, now you have to go to Fidelity or Vanguard and ask them to roll the money over, right? Or to transfer the money. And that takes up to about 2 weeks. Now, you could have had $5,000 sitting there and put that money down, right? We wouldn't charge you anything until you did the deal. And then you could go back and get, the other 100,000 or whatever else you wanted, right? And because it's going to be 2 weeks, and your closing's 4 or 5 weeks away. But most of the time you got to have that deposit money right away. Now, if you haven't made your contributions, then you can wire the money to us, and we can get that in a day or two, mark it as a contribution, and then forward it with the signed contract showing your IRA buying it. But I suggest you just open up the account, right? It doesn't cost you anything, as long as you have the minimum in there. You're not making much on it in a savings account. So, open it up and start it. And the other thing is, we'll be sending you information because you have an account. So we'll be reminding you that you have money there. You better start doing something.
Absolutely. And what I think that's really important for people to understand is that if you start learning the self-directed and understand, you don't have to be an expert. Is number one, right? Carl's an expert, he's an expert. They'll make sure as a third party you don't do all the things wrong. Like they're gonna say, hey, you can't do that, or to an extent on that end of it. So they're that
if we see it,
party.
right, if we see anything that's there, I mean, sometimes somebody's lending money to their mother who got remarried, and we don't know that it's a family member, but we can't catch those. But they'll see it, and they'll also meet people, and they'll also go to our website, and they'll also hear from mentors, and they'll also find a group of people at BPM. We might want to start a subgroup of IRA, self-directed IRA people.
Actually, that's not a bad idea.
And
the reason, and the reason I bring that up is that when I first started and I didn't have much money after getting wiped out, it was the easiest way to actually raise money for my deals was understanding what a self-directed IRA was. And there's a lot of people out there, and you might be one of those people that you have a job and you actually like your job, maybe, right? And you don't have time to put in real estate, but maybe you just want to lend on it, or you want to be a partner on it. And having that self-directed might on your portfolio give you some variety too, right? So maybe it's not all in stocks, or maybe it's not in this. But if you don't understand this, or like if people said, hey Nish, you keep talking about self-directed IRAs, do you have one? Right? And I said, oh no, that's good for everyone else, but not me. It's going to sound a little, I don't know, not shady, but like, I'm not going to trust you. So I think it's always, you got to practice what you preach when you come to it. And for me personally, as I said, like I've been learning from Carl. Like sometimes it didn't really make any sense. I just kind of did it. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, like, okay, it worked.